Yo, what's good? I go by AMiR. You can follow me on all socials at BLKHRT. It's spelled black regular, heart regular, and PAPI.
All right, bet.
For sure.
So me and you, we go back, man. What 2018, 2019?
Yeah.
You was a teenager, I think, when I first met you.
Yes.
And off back, one of the things that we had in common is that we both, did music.
Nice.
And early on, your artistic talent was just so much part of your personality. For some people, sometimes they do music or they have some artistic thing that they involved in,
Right.
and you sort of got to like peel back layers of them to figure out, that they do art or they do music.
Yeah.
But with you, it's not like that. Like that's very much a part of like your personality,
Yeah.
and that's something that I think was real charismatic about you, and it makes you really endearing as an artist, and it made me want to listen to your music. It made me want to, see your journey and see your growth. And so has that been something that's like always sort of part of your personality? Was you always just out and open about your talents dancing and your talents singing, or was that something that you slowly got more comfortable with as you sort of got older?
Yeah, low-key, I think it's always just been something that's been a part of me. Usually when people see me or when they meet me, they can tell that I do something. Like they don't know what I do, but they know that I do something. So I feel like I've always been that. I have like introvert tendencies, but outside of the introvert stuff, I feel like I'm pretty open with what I do. And just by the way that I dress, the way that I like talk and stuff, like you can just tell from my personality that I do something. So I feel like it's always been like that since I was a kid.
Okay. I think that's a part that for a lot of artists, they sort of got to grow into that. They got to get more comfortable with that. A lot of artists sort of like that part of their personality is something that they keep behind closed doors, and it's not until maybe they get more success or more recognition that they sort of bring it out some. And even some of the most famous or biggest artists, they want to, when they out or and they in the world, they try to keep that part of them, behind closed doors or keep that part of them off to the side.
Everybody want to be mysterious.
And so when you look back on your journey, your artistic journey, when do you remember like that first inspiration of one, whether it was dancing first or whether it was singing first, or writing music first? What was sort of like the first entryway where you was whether it was when you was younger, whatever, at whatever point in your life, what was the first entryway into this for you?
Honestly, I feel like because I'm an R&B singer, I feel like a lot of us have the same story. Growing up in church,
okay.
Singing in church and stuff, I feel like that was always something that I was doing. I've always loved music. Michael Jackson is the biggest inspiration to me. I remember watching Thriller at like 4 years old, like scared, but I'm so interested, you know? So I feel like for me being a kid, I've always had love for music and the arts and dancing and acting, and being in creative and performing arts in school kind of helped mold me more into that character, so I feel like it's been since I was a kid that I've always just loved expressing myself and just being different, being out there.
Okay. And when you were in the church and you were singing in the choir, did you, and you talk about, Michael Jackson when you was 4 and watching Thriller and, and listening to music, was it something that you sort of envisioned as something you wanted to do with your life and something that you sort of wanted to do, or was it something you just were sort of doing at the time and then eventually you grew into seeing because like I say that to say, like, I remember being, man, I don't know, probably like 11 years old and at the crib holding the remote control, rapping into the remote control like I was on the stage, and at that point I sort of could envision at some point, I'm gonna do this, or at some point this is something that I want to do in my life. What's that like for you, from the transition from maybe just being in the choir and the transition from just watching an artist on TV or listening to artist music to you seeing yourself in the artistic journey or going through that artistic journey?
I think it's more so like how can I say it? I think it's more so like you said, like picking up a microphone and playing with it. Like I didn't really know if I would ever actually like do music. I just knew that I was interested in that kind of stuff. And I feel like for me personally, like I never really expected myself to do music for real, because before I was doing music, like acting was my thing.
Okay.
Like I love movies,
Okay.
TV shows and stuff like that. But I mean, like there was stuff like as a kid, I would write lyrics. I would write like song lyrics, but that was more so rappy stuff. Like I've always been able to sing, but like, I don't know, I just like to write down raps and little poetry and stuff. And I've always been super interested in like instruments and stuff like that. So, you know, I was trying to get into guitar and piano.
Okay.
So I kind of feel like a lot of that stuff as a kid is like stepping stones. Like,
You're
all
right.
right, like eventually, like this is going to do something. So, I mean, it makes sense, but I never thought about, oh yeah, like I'm going to be a music artist one day, or I want to be like a pop star. I never really thought about that.
Right.
Honestly.
Is it a certain sort of time period in your life where you started taking more of an initiative to create whether it was creating music or writing music or dancing or playing an instrument? Is it sort of a time period where it stopped being something that you maybe weren't necessarily seeing yourself doing, and it became something that, okay, now not only do I see myself doing this, but this is part of my identity. Like I feel like I'm an artist now.
Yeah. Really? I think when I turned 14, 15, I've always been heavily into music. And I feel like me writing raps or writing little songs and doing poetry, I feel like that I kind of took it a little bit more serious as I, you know, got older, like being 15 and 16 years old. I feel like I wrote my first song when I was probably, I don't know, probably like 12 years old, something like that. So, you know, being a 12-year-old and making like writing stuff, you don't think nothing of it. And then, you know, once you like 15 and you're into music and you're writing stuff, you're just kind of like, maybe this is, and you know, people have always known me to be a singer and be a dancer and stuff like that. So I just always kind of felt like, maybe this is something that I could take serious. And then I think by the time I was like 15, 16, that started to really become a part of my identity, because people were seeing it's like, well, you know, he is a cool dancer, like he can sing. It's like it kind of makes sense for him to take that pathway, especially with like how I look and how I dress. Is kind of just like, oh, he's got an image for it, you know. So I feel like after so long of doing music oriented stuff, it's like, why not just try it? So yeah, that's what it was.
When was the first time you got into a recording studio?
Bro, the first session that I ever did, I did it with Shep, Darius Hughes. And Jaleel, shout out Savage Jeter. He the one who booked my first studio session. He had me in the studio. I had already been writing stuff, but I hadn't recorded nothing. I would go on YouTube, listen to beats, write to beats, but I had never recorded nothing. So he the one who booked me my first studio session. I'll never forget that. Ever.
What was that experience like? Or how much of it do you recall? Do you remember it? Is it sort of like
it's like I remember it. I remember being in the studio and just trying different things, because this is the first time I'm hearing my voice on a microphone. So it's like you don't really know how to navigate, but it's like I know how I want this melody to go. I know how I somewhat want it to sound. So being in the studio at that time, it was just nerve-wracking, but it was also interesting. And then hearing myself on the mic and hearing the different things, because, you know, he was trying like different auto tunes, different like presets, trying to see like what would make my voice sound the best. And I remember just listening to the different stuff that he was doing, like, damn, this is cool. Damn, this is cool. So I thought it was cool, but I also was really nervous too.
I think one of the things that as I've been having different conversations with different artists in the city, there's these different transitions you sort of have on your musical journey. You know, there's this earlier part where you're just an experiencer of music, you know, and you're experiencing somebody creating music and you listening to music and you sort of get tied to it and you start to, maybe you enjoy music a little bit more than other people around you and you start being a little bit more infatuated with it than other people around you are. And then you have this, you know, idea in your mind about writing something, and then you take this transition where you're not just an experiencer anymore, but you become a creator, you know, and you have the journey of a writing artist. And for different different people, they have that journey of a writing artist for different periods of time. For some people, it's 2 years before they ever record. Some people, it's 5 years. Some people, it's 10 years, depending on how early you start writing. But then there's the next step of the journey, which is when you become a recording artist and you get into the studio the first time and you're recording for the first time. And like you said, you hearing your voice for the first time, and you start to a lot of times, the same way when you hear a beat, sometimes when you end up writing the song that you write, not necessarily what you thought it was going to be when it was first in your head. And that's this sort of thing that you got to get used to, of how to get the words that you got in your head to come out onto the paper the right way.
You know,
and then you have that same sort of experience once you go to record, where you have the words on the paper and you know what it's like to rap the words out or to sing the words out on the paper, you know, to the beat. But then when you hear your voice being recorded and your voice don't necessarily sound the way that you thought your voice sounded, just hearing it to your ear, and then you have that process of getting accustomed and getting used to your voice, and I think that those are all really important journeys and different important transition processes for different artists to go through. And I think that eventually, for me, I think it was really probably about a year to 2 years of recording music regularly from the time I was. Probably the first time I was really in a real studio with my homie, where he had a good mic and a computer, and he got the setups and the amplifiers, and he got the plugins, was probably around when I was like 16, and then from 16 to 18, I really got comfortable with hearing my own voice, because that's the thing that's nobody can really tell you about either, is that you can go in there and you can record it, and it still take you time to get comfortable listening to your own voice, then take you time to get comfortable letting other people, listen to your voice.
You don't know your voice, and you don't know what you're capable of, and you just don't know. So that process, it genuinely takes, like when you first start doing music, it genuinely takes like a good 2 to 3 years to actually start. Like, you can make some good songs, but you won't genuinely start to find your voice after like 2 or 3 years of doing it. You might do stuff that sounds good, but you still don't know if you found your voice, because you have to keep making songs, trying different things to really see what you can do. And
then I think it's this next process that comes too, where you start releasing music to people, because it's one thing to be like a recording artist and it's just for you. It's just for you, and then there's this different step when you start putting the music out to the world for other people to hear. So talk to me what it was like for you when you started, releasing music, and your peers were hearing your music, and your family or your friends were hearing your music. What was that like for you?
It was cool. It was really cool. I remember the first song that I ever dropped, which you cannot find anywhere, so don't try to find it. But I remember the first time I dropped the song, it got a lot of love. Just even me making a post like, hey, I'm dropping my first song this day, next week, and just to see all the people that were showing love and tuning in, because they're like, they know me, so they're like, oh, this is cool. Cool. So I thought it was really cool. The first couple of songs that I dropped, it was just kind of, I always get nervous right before I drop music, and I've always been like that, because you never really know how people are gonna receive the art that you put out, and you listen to the song so many times and it sounds good to you, but it's like, damn, like what is everybody gonna think? So like I said, I always get nervous before I drop music, and I'm trying to like get out of that, because I feel like, especially like where I am now, like 10 years later doing music, it's like people been rocking with you for these 10 years. So it's like, don't be nervous about it. Like, it should be a fun thing, which it is. It is fun. I remember just being in the studio, like the first couple sessions that I was in, and making songs, and then being able to drop it, and people telling me, oh yeah, that's hard, drop it. It was a fun process. Like I said, I always been nervous, but it's been fun.
Yeah, and I think that's like one of the things that's sort of important too as an artist, is keeping that feeling of anxiety, or keeping that feeling of being nervous. Yeah, you care about it, and each time you always gonna care, and there'll never be anything that'll make it you not care less. If anything, I feel like you get more and more invested, like you get more comfortable with it, but you still get the feeling of, okay, trying to get whether it's trying to get the cover art right, trying to get the track list right, going through and picking which songs will work and which songs won't work, figuring out what the right date is with releasing the music. A lot of the things that especially when you're an independent artist, a lot of the things that you go through is a mix between being an artist and being like a manager, being an artist and being a record label exec, because you're figuring out, you're A&R and all your own stuff, and I think that that's one of the things that's really misunderstood about the independent grind, as opposed to maybe something that other people experience on a major label, where you can have other people that's helping to maneuver all these different things. Whereas
they're doing everything, or they helping you do everything to where you don't have to do a lot.
You can focus just on creating the music and just on recording the music. And I think that it really, and one of the things I've been talking to different people about, we sort of been touching on different points with different artists. I've been sort of touching on the same points and just seeing different people's perspective on these things. But I think one of the things that's, is not talked about with music is that a lot of times people pitch music or view music as, if by the time you're 21, you should be, have the record deal and you should do all these different things. Or you 25.
I thought I was gonna be famous at 25.
And that's how you feel, when you're younger, that's how you sort of feel, because that's how I sort of pitch to you. But the way that music has really evolved and changed is that, you can put out you can put music out on streaming and it can live forever, as opposed to like when, you're putting out a hard copy CD and, you probably maybe can't push that CD again in 2 years after you done put it out, where you need, and only way you can get the music released is if you can find a way to get the CD printed up and find a way to get all of these different things. And now, the way I view music, I talk to people, is that you should view a music career the same way you would view becoming a lawyer, becoming a doctor, where at 23 or 24, anybody that wants to be a lawyer, nobody will look at a 23-year-old that's in law school and say, oh, you ain't, you're not doing 20 cases and doing all these different things, you done failed. Like they know that, you put a certain work that you got to put in at 23. So that way, by the time you 30 or you 40, you will have all this different experience and this different knowledge and this different understanding. And, if you up in a courtroom and you got the biggest, you the defendant, and you got this big case that you got, you probably want the lawyer that look like he 45 and he know a few things and he done went through some ups and downs, and you may not want the dude who like 22 years old that maybe he was a phenom and he got through law school real quick. You want the guy that with the experience. Same thing with being a doctor. You got to be a doctor, you're gonna be in school for maybe 8 to 10 years. And then who knows if you're gonna do something else besides that, how much longer you will be in a medical program. And if you finna have open heart surgery, you don't necessarily want the dude who 22 who just shot through and made it all the way up to the to be in the medical program. You don't want that guy. You want the 50-year-old doctor who then did 20 or 30 of these before and that got this experience. And I think that music is like that, and an art is like that, and that just because a lot of times things have been like commodified in a society that we live in, and sometimes people view music or view art as just how much money have you made on it immediately, or how much commercial success have you had immediately, and don't necessarily think about like how much do you know the art, how much have you learned it, how good are you at being able to get a certain sound out, or how good are you at being able to create a song and write a song. And those are all things that I think are really important. And especially as I'm 35 years old, and I done went through so many different ups and downs in my musical journey, and one of the things that I've always held on to is the importance of just continuing to push through, and if you love something, you fine with doing it no matter how much success you getting in from the outside. And you never know when, especially again back with streaming, you never know when you gonna create whatever the thing is that's gonna make the last 10 years of work pay off. And the benefit that you have when you got 10 years of a catalog is when it pay off, you're gonna get extra dividends, because people gonna go back and listen to the things you made 5 and 6 years ago, like they just heard it.
That's the importance of a catalog.
I had that experience with artists all the time, random, but I just was, I don't know how, my girlfriend was listening to this song by Ella Langley called Choosing Texas. It's a country song, and it's been big recently, but she was listening to it, and then the next song that came up on the streaming thing was a Morgan Wallen song, and I was like, this song kind of cold. I ain't never really listened to Morgan Wallen like that, so I went back. I went back. I listened to his whole catalog, and like that's the thing that can happen. It's to me, it's similar to like TV shows where I remember growing up at a time where you had to watch the TV show while the TV show was on and when the episodes ran. And if you ain't catch it then, you're not going to catch the show. Whereas now, like somebody can find out about Game of Thrones right now. They can binge the whole 8 seasons of Game of Thrones, and Game of Thrones get the check from them watching it and the check from them binging
That's
it.
how it was with Dexter. That show been on since 2007. I just got into it in 2017.
And I think that's how you really got to view music, in this atmosphere. So with that being said, talk to me about your catalog and talk to me about the first project that you put out, what that experience was like, and how much you sort of feel like you've evolved from that first project.
Oh boy, man, I remember the first project that I dropped was BLKHRT Volume 1, and I just remember around that time, a lot of the music that I had on that project was the only good stuff that I had.
Okay.
So I put like 10 songs out, which a lot of those songs I still be like thinking about taking down, but people have these conversations with me where they're like, just because you don't like something doesn't mean that other people won't like it, And with dropping that project, it just kind of showed me that like, dropping music is it should be fun, but it also should be something where it has a direction, and it should never be something that is rushed. Because if I'm being honest, I feel like dropping that project, I kind of rushed it, but I wanted to put out a body of work to really show who I was as an artist at that time. And you can't really regret stuff like that, because that's where I was at that point in time. And from there it's only been up. Like my first project was BLKHRT Volume 1.
And what year was that you said you put that
was
one
2019.
2019.
That was
okay.
2019. I had CDs for it. I did a whole like merch thing.
Okay.
That was the first time I had merch. That was actually at the Loft 1019.
Okay.
Right across.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was at Loft 1019. And like I said, that was the first project that I ever dropped. A lot of those songs was the best songs that I had at the time. And dropping that project kind of showed me, it's like, okay, when you put out this next body of work, you need to have more music that you can choose from, so you can put out the very, very best, So that was my first project, BLKHRT Volume 1. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I dropped a project called Expressions in 2020, at the end of 2020, which that was just like a 7-song EP to kind of show the growth from the last project that I did, because it's like a whole 360. It's like BLKHRT Volume 1 is one vibe, and then you got Expressions, which is more, not as dark. It's a little bit more bright, a little bit more dancey, and you can hear the growth in the music. And I was 20, about to be 21 when I dropped that project. So dropped that at the end of 2020. And from there, I started really just experimenting, because by that time I had already started recording myself. Okay. So like I said, I started recording my own music in 2020. And a lot of those songs, actually, most of those songs that I did were songs that I recorded in my crib. Okay. Like, there's a song on there called Nympho. I did that at the crib. Nympho, Make Love, Turn You On, which was one of the very, very first songs that I actually did record in the studio. So that was just an interesting time, like trying to figure out how the hell do I do this, and etc. So like I said, Nympho, Make Love, Turn You On, and then there's 2 songs, Bounce, I Wanna. I did Bounce at Rock Royal. I did I Wanna with Neil. And Vibes, I did that at the crib, and that song is produced by Gabe. Actually, that was one of the first couple of beats that he had made too. So it was just a really special time, and a lot of special things going on, because me getting my studio and being able to work at the crib really has helped me shape my sound and figure out how to navigate in music. Because like we was just talking about, when you get to record yourself in your crib, you can look stupid and nobody else can hear. Right. You're on your own time. Yeah. it's free essentially. Like you paying for the plugins and stuff, but it's free. I can spend all day in here on this song trying to get it right. Versus going to a studio, you get 10 hours. When you go, that's a bag.
Right.
You feel me? So
do you feel like, not to cut you off, but just even listening to you talk and the emotion in your voice or the tone in your voice shift, was that like a big growth for you or a big evolution for you as an artist? That sort of between that first project and that second project, getting the studio in your crib, having the sort of the weight off your shoulders of releasing a project, and you got the project out, I think one of the things that's also really important too for artists is like getting that validation when you do put a project out for the first time, and you got somebody telling you that, that they fuck with, especially I think even more so when you think, oh, this not my best work, and somebody coming and telling you that they fuck with these different things. And it really, one of the things I think a lot of artists, the separation between a good artist and a great artist a lot of times is just self-confidence, and being comfortable with, like how you said, with trial and error, and being comfortable with experimenting and trying new things. And so you feel like that was a sort of like one of the big artistic steps for you, just going from that first project to the second project and recording at the crib?
Bro, I'm telling you, Expressions was such a perfect time. Like that was just a really perfect time. And it was just really significant in my life too. Like because I had took engineering classes, like I said, so I learned how to engineer, and then I had a little bit of chicken at the time too. So I get my studio equipment and I get it all together, and that is really what helped me create the shift in my music, because I feel like when you are able to work on your own time at your own pace in your own setting, you are gonna get miles ahead of the person who don't take that effort to learn this stuff, because the one thing about music is you got to get them 10,000 hours in.
Fact.
You got to get your 10,000 hours in, and you can't really get that in if you not constantly in the studio. So like there's different parts of being an artist and making music. Like you got the writing part, and then finding beats, and then actually recording it. These different things take a certain amount of time. Even from writing music, it takes time to really get your pen there. Recording yourself, it takes time to really get to a certain point and get those hours in. And even picking beats, I still have trouble finding beats that'll help me express what I'm trying to say. And it all just takes time, like figuring yourself out, figuring your sound out. And that really just helped me create and navigate a way to figure out who I am and what I want to put out. So like I said, Expressions, that was really really important. And then from there, I did a project with my homie Lore Kid. We did Otherworld, and that was more so me trying to get out of the constant R&B stuff that I was doing, and really just trying to find other stuff that I sounded good doing. And that was just a phase of me just like doing nigga shit, making music about it, and just turning up and having fun. So we did that song, and it was just that project, and it was just a super easy process. When you get with somebody and working with them, it's just like seamless.
You got a good rhythm.
It was just a good rhythm. You free? All right, cool. Pull up on me. Listening to beats. We hear something fire. We look at each other. All right, cool. Let's load it up. Boom. I lay down some mumble, yada, yada, yada. That's how I work. I lay down mumble, and then I find the foundation and find the words. Boom. I lay that down, and then he'll make a verse. All right, cool. We're done. You feel me? And it was just like a very easy process. So being in the crib and being able to listen to different music and try different stuff was pivotal. I felt like Otherworld was definitely important for me to do, to step outside of what I normally do and just try different stuff. Still me, but something different from what I did, from what I mainly do. But like I said, it was Otherworld. After that, I dropped a couple years later. Otherworld was 2021, so I dropped Blackheart Volume 2 in 2023. And that was from Blackheart Volume 1 to Blackheart Volume 2, you can just hear the growth, and you can hear the change, and just the subject matter and stuff that I'm talking about. I'm not just talking about stuff that I was 19 going through. Like, this is years of, new experiences, and, years of new growth, and me being able to record myself and try different things. And I feel like that project was super pivotal too. I'm actually working on BLKHRT Volume 3 like now, so I just want, and it's gonna be the final BLKHRT. Like, I kind of want to step into different things as an R&B artist and kind of create a shift, I would say. And BLKHRT Volume 3 is gonna be like the finale of it. So like, out of all the stuff that I've did from BLKHRT Volume 1 to BLKHRT Volume 2,
sort of building up to this.
Yeah, I feel like the start. I feel like all of that was necessary for what's about to happen now. Because I've been making some of the best music ever, and I feel like after BLKHRT is really gonna help me make that shift into what the next chapter of my artistry is. You know, because I just feel like I need to do something different. I've been, like I said, bro, I've been doing music for 10 years. So it's kind of like a thing of, I done put this time in, I done put this effort in, I done made all these songs, and I done did all this different stuff. I just want to continue to elevate and really take my career to the next level. And I feel like this next project, this finale, is really going to help me figure out, or really put people on to what's to come in the future, you know?
And that makes sense. I think that, it's even just watching your journey, from the outside looking in and listening to the music that you've been making and being able to see that growth, and one of the things that I've spoken to multiple artists about is I'm a fan of like A15 music. I'm a fan of the music that gets created out here. So I try to make sure I'm always listening to what somebody else is doing and the different things that people are doing. And
you really is tapped in too.
Yeah,
you really is tapped in, bro.
And so watching, with certain artists where watching their journey is just a fulfillment, it's fulfilling for me the same way watching journeys of artists, that may be more commercial or that may be, bigger and,
like
more famous.
The rapper, you've seen what these niggas was doing and to where they at now. You're like, these are superstars.
Yeah, and it's even more intimate when you know the person, like, and you've seen this person and this, because there's some people who make music and, they don't necessarily have they're not that necessarily dedicated to the process of creating music, which I understand, because everything you was just saying is just so true, is that, it's patience that go into this, and it's a repetitive nature of trying things over and over again.
You make a song, you listen to that shit.
And so when you see somebody that's taking the effort to put in that work, it's not only do it motivate you, but it inspire you to see somebody doing that. I remember, when you were a kid, went on that run and y'all put out, even when y'all put out the deluxe after y'all had put out the first project, I was watching, I'm like, these niggas working, and y'all got a rhythm, y'all did something that was unique, it wasn't another R&B artist and a hip hop artist that got together and made a collab project, and the videos y'all put out, I think it was the white tee on the tennis court when y'all was on the tennis court with it, and so watching y'all do that, and even from the outside looking in, I could see like the trajectory of how many of the recognition you was getting as well. I feel like that was a important part in your journey, where it was, I get on social media, I'm seeing you. I get on Facebook or Instagram, like I'm seeing you. It's in people's faces, and I'm seeing people reacting to it, and I'm seeing the organic love that y'all was getting from what y'all was creating, and seeing that y'all was doing something that was unique and something that was different, and I think that the culture in the city always benefits from different people continuing to do something different and do something unique, and continuing to put music out, and continuing to, at different points, different artists have sort of held the city down, and different people have been like sort of the face of the city, and it's like, okay, we behind this person, we listening to this person, and for me, I've seen that, with you, and talk to me about what it's been like, because we talked about the becoming a writing artist, becoming a recording artist, releasing music. Talk to me about what it's been, your journey as a performing artist, because I think one of the things that's also unique about you is that, everybody, I get on the stage and pick up the microphone and rap, niggas get on the stage and pick up the microphone and rap. It's not too many other people that's getting on the stage and that's putting together a performance, like how you putting together a performance, even as a rap artist, I got to find different ways where, like, how do I set the scene up back here,
Yeah.
how I got the energy right, you know. But you know, you have a stage presence, you know, like you get up onto the stage and you take command on the stage. So
I
talk to
try.
me about your journey as a stage performer, as a performance artist as well.
Dude, it's my thing is I've always been on stage. Because like I said, before I was doing music, I was in the acting thing, bro. So
Okay.
I remember the first play that I ever did, I was in the 5th or 6th grade. So being on stage, and most of the plays that I've done were musicals. So I'm used to